Hey, welcome back to ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Airy, and let's talk about that incredible ending of Agatha All Along, Episode 5. We just got the reveal that Wanda's son, Billy, is still alive.
Wait a minute, I didn't catch that at all.
Oh, don't worry, my friend. I'm going to explain how he is still alive, how all this works in the comics, and how all of this is going to be leading up to a new Avengers team. Plus, I think there's more here than it seems. Rio is going to be part of all of this, and Billy's resurrection means that he is actually the son of both Agatha and Wanda. And a little later, I'm going to be joined by Heather, Antos, and Bevan to get their thoughts, but first, let's run down everything that we know. And a little later, I'm also going to tell you why I think that the real person behind all of this has been Wanda all along.
What?
And also, we're going to dive a little bit into whether or not that ending actually happened, or was it like the ending of the Twilight movies?
Do you say what now?
I'll explain a little bit later, but first, I want to remind you guys that we are going on tour, and our first live show is coming up on November 14th in Boston. Can't wait to meet you guys, nerd out together, do trivia, have live arguments with you on stage, and also you can stay up to date on all of that news and geek out with us on our Discord, which has been popping off with Agatha All Along theories. It's a lot of fun. Links for everything are below. Now, it is really fun to have this Billy reveal confirmed, but you know, we did guess this as soon as Joe Locke was cast in this role. Also, it was spoiled by a closed caption on the trailer, by a leaked Funko Pop toy, and there were lots of other clues. For instance, the teen has stars on the side of his jeans, just like stars on the side of Wiccan's superhero costume.
Wiccan? You mean like Auntie Abigail?
No, I mean like Wiccan, the comic book character. I know we have talked about this a lot in past videos, but just in case some of you don't watch every single video we put up, shame on you by the way, I'm going to explain Wiccan's comic book past very briefly, so please bear with me if you already know this information. In the 1980s, Wanda and Vision got married and bought a house in the suburbs. During this time, Agatha Harkness was burned at the stake in New Salem by the same group that we meet in this episode, the Salem 7. Then Agatha's residual spiritual energy went into Wanda, and then Wanda used that energy to create her twin sons. Very long story short, it turned out the kids were actually figments of her imagination or part of Mephisto's soul. Years later, this was retconned to say that Wanda actually rescued their souls so they would be reincarnated into two teenage boys, Billy Kaplan and Tommy Shepard. Now, these two became key members of the Young Avengers, one of my favorite comic books that we're going to talk about a bit later. In this episode, Agatha tells him,
"You don't have to know a person's name to know who they are."
And it's clear that in this moment, she believes that the teen is actually the spirit of her son, Nicholas Scratch. Now, it's really fun that they put this misdirect in, because otherwise we would have just assumed that the teen was Wiccan all along. But let's face it, we all knew that this was Billy the whole time.
The whole time, the whole time!
And the big reveal of the episode was when Agatha's words awakened the truth within Billy. He unleashes dormant powers to mind control Jennifer and Lilia. Now, this is exactly what we saw Wanda do to the Avengers in Age of Ultron, except, and this is key, his powers go blue instead of red, like his mama's. And there's an important reason for this that's going to make this version of Wiccan very important to the show.
Well, that's it. No one's ever gonna love me.
What are you talking about? Everybody loves you. You're on coffee mugs.
No, I'm a real bad son. It's Parents' Day, but I didn't give my parents nothing. It's just that say, what you got on your wrist there?
Oh, you like it? It's called Hapaku. It's made from maple wood and leaf. Matter of fact, you should get your dad one for Parents' Day. I got her from Holzkern. You see, Holzkern specializes in one-of-a-kind products made from wood and other natural materials, and they're the sponsor of this video. I love this watch so much because it is so unique. The dial is even made from a poplar fig leaf. Like, that's what I love about Holzkern. They make their products in small quantities, so every item has a high standard of quality that will last you for a very long time. That's why they make for perfect gifts. They're made from natural materials, and I like knowing that all of their wood is FSC certified, and they are working to fight deforestation. This watch in particular looks very elegant, very old-fashioned, but I love that you can see the detail of the leaf on the face.
Well, that's great for my dad, but what about my mom?
Oh, Holzkern sells jewelry for men and women. You should get your mom these earrings. They are called Composition, made from blue nacre and rose gold.
Oh yeah, she would love those.
Yeah, and she's gonna love knowing that they're unique and natural. See, Holzkern is a small, family-owned company based in Austria that has served over 1 million happy customers. They also offer free express worldwide shipping, with products typically arriving within 2 to 5 business days. So if you're looking for a great gift for somebody or just a unique accessory for yourself, I highly recommend you click the link in the description and use our discount code ScreenCrush to get 10% off your purchase. This would really help out the channel, and guys, you won't regret it. I absolutely love these Holzkern watches. Now, back to what I was saying. Now, if the teen is Billy Kaplan, then the real question is, how the heck is he actually alive? And who placed that sigil on him?
The sigil?
Sigil. Remember, a few episodes ago, it was revealed that the teen's identity was being kept secret from magic users. Now, I'm going to talk about this with Heather and Bevan later, but there's a few key things that we know. One, we know that Wanda Maximoff was driven insane insane in Multiverse of Madness. She realized that her children existed in every other reality except her own. So a couple weeks ago, we posted this video. In that video, I wondered, why did Wanda's kids not exist in the 616 universe? And then I realized the only real difference between the 616 universe and the other realities is that in the 616, Thanos wins. In the show What If and in Multiverse of Madness, we only ever see realities where Thanos was defeated. Thanos' snap set off a chain reaction that killed Vision and resulted in Wanda creating her kids with chaos magic, which I think made her kids unstable so they couldn't be sustained with her spells. But remember, in every other reality, Wanda and Vision probably would have worked with Agatha Harkness or some other witch to create their children in a way that meant they could continue on and grow older. But remember guys, the only reason Thanos was able to snap and the only reason Thanos won was because He Who Remains from the show Loki manipulated the course of events to make the Avengers time travel, which would cause a Loki variant to come to him and eventually take his place. Like I said, we covered all of that and more in this video. What's important to know is that Billy and Tommy are actually meant to be alive. He Who Remains had to change the natural course of history. Now, if they were meant to be alive, this would mean that even though they were erased when Wanda lowered the Hex, their souls still existed. Now, at the end of Multiverse of Madness, Wanda destroys the Darkhold in every reality. And I think that in her final moment, she had
what alcoholics refer to as a moment of clarity.
And she heard her son's souls calling out to her, just like at the end of WandaVision. And this is when Wanda could have placed the sigil on her sons to protect them from magic users. Specifically, to protect them from Agatha, who would want revenge on Wanda. Or at the very least, Agatha would want to steal their powers.
Yeah, but how did Wanda save her kids' souls and all that stuff? That seems real complicated.
So here's what I thought was interesting. Billy displays his mother's mind control abilities, but those abilities manifest as blue energy instead of red. Now, blue is the energy he uses in the comics. Now remember, Agatha's energy in the MCU is purple. So here's my theory. Remember, Wanda absorbed Agatha's powers at the end of WandaVision. And in this show, we find out that Agatha is a spirit witch. A spirit witch meaning that she has ties to the afterlife and ghosts. Hell, in this episode, we even see that she involuntarily drains powers from others. So her abilities are innately connected with the afterlife. So I think that in Wanda's final moments in Multiverse of Madness, she tapped into those abilities she absorbed from Agatha and then used them to rescue her son's souls and bring that back to the colors of their energy. What happens when you subtract red energy from purple?
You get gray.
No, you get blue. You get blue energy. Wanda's red energy is taken from Agatha's purple energy, leaving that residual Agatha energy to resurrect Billy. So his powers manifest as blue. Just like in the comics, this makes Billy partially a child of Agatha's and partially a child of Wanda's. Now, after I talk to Heather and Bevan, I'm going to go over why I think that Wanda is still controlling these events behind the scenes. But first, I'd like to remind you guys that we have designed some awesome new Agatha All Along parody merch at our merch store. We have the Westview Neighborhood Watch. It'll be a gas, and Get On Losers, We're Walking the Cursed Road. The links for those and other Marvel parody merch are below. Thank you guys for watching and supporting our channel. So that's just my theory so far, but there are a lot of other fan theories about this show that I haven't even touched on yet. So to talk about what we think of the show so far and just some of these other questions like who is Rio and is Billy really going to be Wanda's son, we have Heather Antos and Bevan here to join me. So I haven't actually talked to either of you about this show yet. We've been so caught up doing other stuff, we haven't had a chance to do these follow-up videos, but I had to talk about this one. Like, this is potentially such a huge reveal, even though we all guessed it well ahead of time. I got to think maybe it's not this convenient, that the show is hiding something else, maybe involving Nicholas Scratch. I mean, I don't really know what to make of it. So first of all, Bevan, we haven't talked to you in forever. Tell me, what did you think of the show so far, like leading up to this episode?
I think this show has been very smart in the sense that from an artistic perspective, from a production perspective, and a business perspective. Artistically, I like that they're delving into the typical TV format of like TV's about characters and relationships. And this show was focusing so much on Agatha and her relationships with the characters around her and her past relationships as well. So I love that. From a production standpoint, I love that we've gone back to practical effects more than anything else. Like, there's very little CGI. You can tell they're actually on a set. The costume, the production design is really good. I love the prosthetic makeup of like the monsters and stuff like that. That's all really well done. From a business perspective, I think Marvel has been really, really smart in budgeting appropriately to their target audience. And they're leaning into their target audience, which is people that love the craft, people that love practical magic, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, basically 90s witchy goodness. That's kind of what I think so far.
I love that, especially what you said about them reverting to practical effects. Like, we had the great makeup and the Desperate Housewives trial. That was really cool. Bevan, remind me, where can people find your socials? I know they're linked below, but where are you at?
Sure, I'm at Bevan Bat Spice. At
Bevan Bat
Instagram.
Spice.
Bevan Bat Spice. That's me.
On the Instagram. Heather, what about you? What are your thoughts on this? Before we get into like our theories and whether or not, how the hell this could be Billy and how he's alive, what are you thinking about the show so far?
I enjoy it. This is probably one of my favorite Marvel shows since Hawkeye, since WandaVision originally. You know, the show really has a clear identity and knows what it is. It's episodic, right? Tying into what Bevan said about just being very, very smart about making a TV show that is existing to be a TV show. Yes, it's probably tying into the larger MCU and things that they're trying to do beyond just the show, but you know, it's not pitching me a movie, which has been really nice and fresh for Disney Plus Marvel shows. You know, the cast is clearly just having a ball, having a good time. This show has kind of reinvigorated my hope for the future of the MCU. I hope we're getting more things like this that can just exist on its own and be what it wants to be.
Heather, what's your social real quick before I forget to plug it later on?
Yeah, I'm at Heather Antos on all of the things.
And she's a really fun follow. I recommend you guys take a listen to her. So, you know, one thing you've brought up here about it being one of the better things in the MCU recently, TV show wise, it's funny how certain things get overlooked that Marvel's put out. I also think Werewolf by Night is criminally overlooked, both the black and white and the color version. And I'm hoping this doesn't bode poorly for this horror side of Marvel. I'm hoping that, like, you know, with Moon Knight and Blade actually coming out, that might invigorate like that aspect, like kind of more practical, more low budget, because I love getting just different stuff. Even though this show does have its fair share of shooting lasers out of people's hands, at least in this show, it means something. There's like consequences to shooting, you know, fire out of your hands, especially in this episode. So I got a few things I wanted to address here. I want to talk about whether or not Alice is really dead, what the hell is going on with Rio. But first, Bevan, let's talk about the team. Is he Billy Kaplan, like I talked about earlier? Are they saving a different reveal? What are your thoughts on this?
I don't think they were subtle in revealing who he was. And I think most of us guessed that this is where it was going. But it was like, I'm actually surprised that they decided halfway through to reveal this, which means that, because I thought it was going to be revealed during like the 11 o'clock hour and stuff like that, and then there'd be like a big showdown between the two of them. My interest is piqued that they've revealed this now, that this is Billy, and you know, he's got his mom's power. It's very clearly Billy. It's not anybody else at this point.
I think you're right. I think it is Billy, and I think it would be a Ralph Boner-sized stupid misdirect if it wasn't. But, you know, there could be other aspects to this, like who put the sigil on him, things like that. Heather, what about you? Is this Billy we're dealing with? Do you have any other theories on how the hell he could be Billy? Like, we know how it happened in the comics. I talked about that earlier. But what do you think has actually happened here in the MCU? And is it even Billy to begin with?
Yeah, I mean, well, obviously it's Mephisto, right? I mean...
Done. Yeah.
Done, right?
Easy.
End it now. No, I knew... As soon as they mentioned Nicholas Scratch in an earlier episode and the rumors of Wanda's son and all of this stuff, I knew, well, he's not Nicholas Scratch then. That's a very clear red herring that they're trying to do. So yeah, Billy seemed the only other obvious option. I agree with Bevan. I think it's pretty fairly obvious. This is Billy. Will we see him as Wiccan in the show? I don't know. It's really hard to theorize specifically with this show because I'm not sure quite which multiverse, which universe, which timeline all of this is supposed to be taking place in. It's, you know, and I kind of like that about this show. It makes it so almost anything is possible, and I'm willing to accept that as a viewer. You know, we were talking a little bit before the show about, you know, maybe there's a possibility that Wanda is behind all of this, and I think that would be really exciting. I don't think fans are done with Elizabeth Olsen as Scarlet Witch. I certainly know I'm not. And yeah, the reveal of Billy now at the halfway point of the show, right? End of episode 5, when we have 4 episodes left to go. Like, there's another big twist coming, right? Just to keep
definitely
of the show.
And I personally think that big twist is going to involve Rio, which I want to talk to you guys about in just a second. But just to keep it on Billy for a second, right? You know, part of the fun of this kind of thing and this reveal is the theory crafting of it. Elizabeth Olsen was pretty done with the MCU, pretty public about it. Left the door open, stuff like that, but was very vocal in her disappointment after Multiverse of Madness and how they treated Wanda's character. And did that great interview, I think it was with Vanity Fair, where she did her role, went through roles and talked about, various things. And, for instance, she had to pass up a role in The Lobster to be in Captain America Civil War. And I love Captain America Civil War, but these are very different films, and she clearly wants to explore other things. So if that's the case, it's really hard to see how Wanda could have put the sigil, why they would make it that Wanda put this sigil on him. But then the larger question is, Wanda died. How the hell did she not only bring her kid back from the dead, but place this sigil on him? We did have that altar, the Chaos God, the Chthon altar of Wanda. It was in the Void that we saw in Deadpool and Wolverine, but it's kind of mind-bending. There's a lot of different ways they could go with this. Do either of you have a theory you want to throw out on how Marvel could bring all this around and who put the sigil on him?
It's very clear that the Witch's Road doesn't exist in any finite reality. It's kind of in a place in and of itself. Between this and all the other multiverse things we've seen going on, this is its own place where anything, like I said, anything is possible.
So do you think the opening, just to clarify, do you think the opening of Wanda or of Agatha in Westview is in 616, or do you think we're in a different universe?
I think we might be in a different universe, but I'm not,
It's so complicated though.
It's so
I don't know if they would go. Yeah, I think if they were going to do that, they would have made it obvious. They would have had spaceships or something, or the Fantastic Four, it's obviously set in a different timeline.
They could just trying to take a cue from their past mistakes and just try and isolate this as much as possible so it's more digestible for especially their target audience that might not be familiar with all the comics as well. I think there is a real possibility based on the dialogue in the last episode that it was Billy himself that put the sigil on him. And this could be more of
interesting.
A Sweeney Todd kind of thing where Billy, Toby, cuts Sweeney Todd at the very end. Spoiler alert, guys, for a musical.
Yeah, I was about to say, hold on. Now, I know that came out in the 80s, but I guess, look, for all the things you could spoil from Sweeney Todd, that's pretty tame. So we'll just move on from there. Keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, but I think if Marvel is smart and learning its lessons, I think they're trying to just contain this as much as possible, and that this could be Billy's own agency of trying to take revenge against Agatha and maybe seeking power himself to get his mother back from the dead.
Well, I went over earlier how this happens in the comics. I'm still the mental gymnastics they jump through to make Wanda pregnant in the first place back in the 80s. And then for John Byrne to say, well, the kids never existed after they'd existed for a decade at that point. And then for them to go back, years later and say, oh, no, see, the thing is that, there was this life force thing and then parts of the life force. It's very complicated, even for Marvel comics across 70 years of continuity. 60 years of continuity. How do you think they could simplify this? Billy being alive. Like I said, I've got theories I'll talk about later, but Heather, as a storyteller, what do you think would make sense in a cinematic universe where it's got to be digestible for the normies?
The simplest is he just is, and we accept that, right? And that's
they won't do that though.
But they might.
Some stuff.
They might. So? I don't know. I would just, with all of this focus on Billy, with all of this focus on Nicholas Scratch, with all of this behind the scenes, Wanda is overshadowing all of the show, right?
Yeah.
Her death. How did she die? How did she end up in Westview? They haven't teased it at all. But in my mind, I keep asking, where's Tommy in all of this? Is Tommy going to come into this in any way, shape, or form? Is there something there? Because he is a very key player in this Westview, Wanda Maximoff, Billy storyline that is not present at all.
But in the comics, Billy was introduced first before Tommy, and then they had to when he figured out who he was, he sought Tommy out.
But they were both introduced together originally in Wanda.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh,
and
yeah,
they were
in
both
WandaVision.
Together in Multiverse, right? It's very clear they're not sticking with the comic storyline then.
I'll tell you what I'm hoping for this, and there's no candidate I can think of who would fit this. I would love it. I would love it if there had been somebody in the MCU all along, who was a teenager, whatever, who we could just say was Tommy, right? Mm-hmm. Who was unrealized. Maybe a character from the Spider-Man films, not Flash Thompson, but if there was some way to take a character who had been in the background the whole time, and then they end up being Tommy, that would be a twist. But that's the kind of twist where
Genki?
You would really have to think years in advance. Yeah, it could be. Well, not Genki. What's Ned? It could be Ned. Why not?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Bevan, there's another twist here. Yeah, you brought up like they revealed this halfway through the show.
Yeah,
And they would not have done that if it were the only twist.
correct.
It's hard to fool us in this show, right? It's hard, like, it's pretty clear in Moon Knight there was going to be a third personality because there's 3 personalities in the comics, and it's my job to spoil that for people after seeing the trailer. Like, did you guys actually know there's 3 of these guys? With this one, though, there's a popular fan theory going around about Rio that she's Marvel's version of Death. And, Death is originally, I talked earlier about Thanos, or I've talked in our Easter egg video about Thanos and how he worshiped Death. We don't want to get into some of the gross Thanos Death stuff here. I think that's a strong possibility, and there's a lot of implications that it's leading that way. I'm not sure how that could fit into this ending, because I think it's interesting that Rio's whole thing is green, and when they exit the road and this challenge, which is all about death, suddenly they're enveloped in green. I'm wondering if if the next mystery is not only going to be the reveal of Rio, but also what happened to Nicholas. Where do you stand on this? Like, what do you think could be? Do you have any theories on what the hell this next big reveal could be and how it would involve Aubrey Plaza? Because you don't just cast Aubrey Plaza to hang out. She's going to do something.
And by the way, she's having the best time ever. I mean, she's having the best time ever with this. And I love her, which is Cackles. She's great. And she seems to be addicted and drawn to energy around danger and death, which is why I think she kind of showed up once Mrs. Hart, was buried in the ground, and I think she's just drawn to it because Agatha, sucks people to death. I think that's one of the reasons why she's attracted to her. So it's a very strong possibility that will be revealed, and that she's just somebody that's kind of like a drug addict that just wants to be around people that constantly cause death and stuff like that. And maybe she's kind of, I don't know, again, it's a theory, but it could be a thing where she's just kind of there as a drug addict that knows what's going to come with Billy and Agatha, and she kind of just wants to be a spectator about it, or maybe protect Agatha since she really likes her. Who knows? I like how unpredictable she is, and I'm okay not knowing the answer to this.
The idea of her being Death, though, there was some dialogue that hinted toward that. She says, I took something from somebody and they got mad at me, even though it's my job. I think she's talking about Agatha, Nicholas Scratch dying. There's weird things in this episode where she kept disappearing. She disappeared when Alice died. She disappears outside when everybody else seems to die. There's just something else at play here. I do think that
she laughed. She laughed during the Ouija board death thing.
She also
did. That's right.
Hates ghosts, right? And ghosts is death unfinished, right? Death did not finish their job. So I think there's another clue there.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see how that fits in with Wanda. I do think all of this goes back to Wanda. I don't think the MCU is trying to replace Elizabeth Olsen with Catherine Hahn. I think she's going to come back. I think she's going to give rebirth to the multiverse after Secret Wars and fulfill her destiny as a mother, et cetera, et cetera. It's just too perfect to not do, and you can't just kill her off like they did in Multiverse of Madness. They wouldn't even kill her off as a villain in the comics. So I do wonder how all this comes together. How does Rio, if she's Death, was she involved in the resurrection? Because she knew right away that Billy was not Nicholas Scratch. She tells Agatha, that's not your boy. Agatha didn't believe her. Agatha says, you're just like your mother. And I think she meant herself in that. Would you guys agree, or do you think that she understood that it was Wanda?
Yeah, and I also just thought it would also be interesting if this is the story about how Agatha dies, especially if Billy is out to get revenge for Wanda, and this is the end is Agatha's going to die, and Death is just there to come and collect her, and she's really excited about watching this last journey of Agatha.
Well,
believe it or not, we have a video coming out next week that is about that very same topic. I just want to plug that, but you're so good. You're so good, Evan. That's great. Go ahead, Heather. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, what if that's the end of the road, right? They're killing they're killing Agatha to bring Wanda back.
Yeah.
That's the whole ploy of all of this, and bringing together all the witches that hate Agatha, which is basically anyone.
Yeah, true. All the theories floating around that Wanda would appear, that she might cameo at the end of this. I kind of think it's going to happen. I think they've already had that planned. I think there's a reason they sat on this show for so long. I think there were some rewrites, and I think they talked to Elizabeth Olsen and said, yeah, look, we're getting the band back together.
Want me to?
Some of the new stuff's not working. We're bringing all these people back, and fans want to see you. We want to give the fans what they want. What do you think?
I was going to say the really boring reason that points to Wanda coming back for me is Elizabeth Olsen is appearing at New York Comic Con. Like that's the big neon sign for me.
We laugh, but boy, that's an indicator. You can look at like the Endgame premiere. We were like, why is Natalie Portman there? Natalie Portman wasn't there because they reused some old footage from Thor: The Dark World. She had just signed on to do Thor: Love and Thunder, right? I know it's great though to have a show like this where I don't know. I have no idea. And it's also challenging for us, like, Brianna McLarty's been writing the bulk of our Easter egg videos. When I say the bulk, I mean like the heavy bulk, like the 90%. She loves horror and tarot and witchcraft. So like we have this whole new area of our culture that's being explored in this show, and also just giving us not quite the level of mystery of WandaVision, because she bit me, because in WandaVision, we didn't really have a basis in the comics apart from like, House of M. This show, yeah, Billy, death, sure. But for me, that's not even the most interesting part. The most interesting part for me is how he came back. Who put that sigil on him? What does this indicate for the future? Where is Tommy? And I guess this is my final question for you guys. Given where Marvel's been, right? It was pretty clear a few years ago they were setting up certain things. In 2020, we talked about the Young Avengers and how they seem to be setting up those characters. Now, we had the Marvels. We had no Hulkling set up. We had the Kamala Khan tease in the Marvels, which didn't seem to garner much enthusiasm. Do you guys still think that they're eyeballing Young Avengers, that could be Wanda's return through the show Vision Quest, which I'm really excited for? How do you guys think this is going to impact the future of the MCU?
I do think Young Avengers is still coming in some way, shape, or form. I just don't think that Kevin Feige and the folks at the MCU know exactly how they want to do it, whether it's I personally think Young Avengers is a mistake to not make a TV show, not to make an episodic,
I agree.
To really explore these characters. But I definitely think it's still coming. Other characters they're teasing, across the board in Fortnite and the Marvel Snap games and all this stuff. They're testing the waters with more and more of these younger characters. So I definitely think, there's a huge possibility we will see a Young Avengers that's, led by a tired Kate Bishop Hawkeye and
Kamala Khan and Cassie.
And exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if the whole Sony deal, losing Spider-Man, the crazy weirdness with all of Spider-Man, I think they were teasing doing Miles and then that didn't quite, come through, and that would be a character I know they would want. So I don't know, there's whether it's Young Avengers, whether it's Champions, right, which was trying to do Young Avengers again. I definitely think there's still a possibility, but I don't think they know what it is yet. And I am thankful that the MCU and Disney Plus seem to have finally learned that, we can't just like rush products and TV shows out.
Or throw money at them and hope that they turn out great, like with the Acolyte and things.
I think Disney has finally started to learn, like, they want good things, not just things.
Right, exactly. Well, that gets into a whole conversation about Bob's paycheck and all that stuff. Devin, how about you? Do you think that Young Avengers is still on the horizon for us?
I don't think it's coming soon. And I think that's a smart decision because I think they're recognizing that those characters need more time to marinate in other properties if people are going to show up to a Young Avengers proper show. But if they budget Young Avengers accordingly, like they're doing with Agatha, they were very smart to think, okay, Agatha's like a C-tiered character. She's not as popular. Let's budget accordingly to this. And now they can say that it's a success because they didn't give Agatha $200 million for a TV show for a character that not a lot of people, buy comics for. So I think if Young Avengers is treated along the lines of Agatha and, all of these characters start popping up in other properties and then more and more people become aware of them, then I think you're going to have a successful TV show of Young Avengers. But I think they're going to focus more on X-Men right now. So many people are hyped for X-Men. It's a more popular franchise.
Four, like, yeah.
Fantastic
Well,
Four. Yeah,
let me throw this out there as the final word here. If they're going to do Young Avengers, the clock is ticking.
sure.
Because if it's going to come out after Endgame, and it's going to be 2028, and it's not going to be Young Avengers, it's going to be like Dear Evan Hansen with these guys who, were teenagers when they started, but have now aged out of the role. So, guys, thank you very much for joining me. Heather, Bevan, always a pleasure. You can find their social links below. Now, talking to Bevan and Heather got me thinking. I think that Wanda is actually on the Witch's Road right now.
But how? She died.
Well, in the comics, the Witch's Road exists outside of normal time and space. For example, when Wanda walks the road, she actually meets a younger version of her dead mother, from when her mother walked the road decades earlier. So it could be that Wanda walked the road when she was studying the Darkhold, or that she survived her ordeal in Multiverse of Madness and her future self is walking the road during the show. Now, my favorite theory about the ending is that it didn't really happen, that it's all a vision of the future that Lilia is experiencing. That would explain why Rio keeps disappearing and why everything in these scenes is this weird green hue. I also think that Alice is still alive and the whole series is now going to be a ticking clock, counting down to the moment when Billy goes full Wanda. This is like the ending of the Twilight Saga, which, I don't want to spoil for you, but I am a huge defender of. But, like I was saying with Bevan and Heather, I do think that all of this is leading up to the Young Avengers. And the seminal Young Avengers comic book is called Children's Crusade, when Billy and Tommy restore their mother from an amnesiac state. And I really do hope this episode creates momentum for the Young Avengers because they're just such a fun team. In fact, I would like to hear from you guys in the comments or on our Discord. Do you think that the Young Avengers should be in the MCU, and do you think they should be a series or a movie? And just a reminder, everybody, please check out our links below for our merch store, Discord, and to buy tickets to our live show. And for fun gift ideas, check out our sponsor Holzkern, and let us know what you think about all of this down in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, welcome to the channel. Please subscribe and smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.